wanted to talk about this set density node, which I find very useful. Let's take a look at our perspective. Again, let's turn on the auto update. And I'll revert back to my black background. So press D, look for the background tab, and change the color scheme to dark. Okay, so one thing that this node is doing, if you take a look at the code, it's generating an alpha value and a density attribute. And these two attributes will be used for rendering. So notice how we have different alpha values on these particles. Some of them will be semi-transparent if rendered. So how is this transparency being achieved? First of all, a density attribute is being created using a ramp based on the age of the particles and a fade-in value. So this fade-in value is here, by default is 0.5, and this is a value of time based in seconds. So if you take a look at the default ramp, when the particle is born, it will be completely transparent and gradually will be more and more opaque. Another thing that we have here is a density by depth. And if we take a look at the code, the density attribute is also being multiplied by this ramp here that is checking the depth attribute of the particles. And by default, if these particles are underneath the water surface, they're more transparent than the ones that are riding on the surface of the water. So this is also good if you want to render, for example, bubbles or spray. Your bubbles will be more transparent than the foam as well as the spray, which is on this right side of the ramp. And finally, the alpha attribute is being matched to the density attribute that has been just created here. And the reason we have both alpha and density attributes is because sometimes you may want to render these particles as volumes. Notice how this is a volume rasterized attribute node. So what this node is doing is rasterizing the density attribute and converting it into a VDB volume. As you can see here. So as everything else, depending on the look you're after or the proximity of the camera, the speed of the whitewater, you may sometimes want to render these as volumes or sometimes as particles. Generally, what I do is render them as particles, but with this setup, you will have both options available. So in case you want to output the volume, you can use this default null, or probably you want to output the particles, and we can create our own null here. You can call this one out particles or out WW particles and render this output. So I think overall we're getting very nice shapes. I really like the contrast that we're achieving here with these tendrils, and also the spray is looking nice overall. So this takes care of the white water. So let's now move on to the snow avalanche exercise.